Coffee Buddies, welcome to everyone. What do we say? This is our fifth Coffee Buddies of this conference. Coffee Buddies is a show. We call it a show because it's designed to entertain and inform and engage. And our goal is to build a community. And we always say that people never really arrive until their voice is heard. So we very much look forward to interactions. And we have a partner today, which we're delighted to be with, which is KPMG. And the partner is going to, in the form of Luke, who will introduce himself in a minute, is going to give us some great insights into Asia, and in particular in today's session on Vietnam. And really what we want to do is to, during this session, we will have an interesting discussion with Luke. We will then, if time allows and when time allows, Graham, move into some sort of breakout group. Will we still do that in this form?
Yep, absolutely.
And then we will bring the greater group back. Firstly, can I just welcome with a big welcome, Luke, and maybe you could tell us who you are, Luke.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks everybody for taking the time to talk today. Yeah, my name is Luke Treloar. I'm the Director of Strategy Consulting for Vietnam and Cambodia, and I also am the Regional Head for Life Sciences and Healthcare for KPMG.
Fantastic. And how long have you been in Asia, Luke?
I've been in Vietnam now for just shy of 3 years in this current role that I described, and before that I was in China for up to 10 years, mostly with KPMG.
So you must like it. What's your driver for? Is it just intrigue? Is it curiosity? Is it culture? What is it?
The speed. I love the speed to market. I love the excitement of the cutting edge of the emerging world. I really enjoyed my time in China, particularly a decade ago when just post Olympic time in China, when it was growing so fast. And then in Vietnam, Vietnam's a wonderful market where it's growing quite quickly, but it's small enough that a few smart people can really move the needle.
Yeah, and you're a farmer guy. Are you a farmer guy or biotech?
Well, I'm trained as a chemist, originally, and a biochemist, but I don't practice. I'm a consultant by living.
Oh, sounds good. Well, you've got a couple of slides to go through, and your focus is on Vietnam. And I don't know whether you're going to ask us the first question, which is, what's the city behind the title navigation?
I was. It's not that isn't Vietnam. I was given a template from our regional colleagues, so that may very well be Singapore. So apologies for not.
Jakarta. It's actually
Jakarta.
It's
there. Is it? Okay. All right.
Kind of like you wouldn't really expect it in Jakarta. So I did learn something on this journey. So that's good. Take it away, Luke.
Yeah, in a perfect world, I would have remade the template to highlight the Vietnam's beauty, but unfortunately, we ran out of time.
Right. So maybe you could go through your few slides.
Yeah, okay. So right off the bat, for those of you who do not know, KPMG is just launching its Global Site Selection for Life Sciences free guide. This is a major publication that we have just launched that covers site selection parameters around the world, from labor pools and availability, biotech parks, the R&D clusters and manufacturing. It's a free guide, and so I really encourage you to take a look and look at the resources that we put together for you. As you go through, please feel free to reach out to the KPMG team, either myself or Christine on the call. I was the author of a small part of it on Southeast Asia, but there's a lot of really useful information. So when you have a free chance, I encourage you to take a look.
Fantastic.
Well, maybe we can dive into Southeast Asia and Vietnam.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
Okay, there are four key areas I want to highlight with you today about Vietnam. First, taking a look at the macros of the country and how it compares to its regional peers, because Vietnam oftentimes gets clumped into its ASEAN grouping. Two, how is Vietnam comparing regionally? How is it growing? And how is that driving opportunities for life sciences and the ability to drive health outcomes? Three, very high level, looking at some of the regional development stories that we've looked at for Vietnam. My team has actually done a lot of work with the Vietnamese government, thinking backwards from how Vietnam can leapfrog the traditional model of moving from the traditional growth model life sciences, from basic manufacturing up through clinical trials and into IP creation. How can Vietnam use digital and learn from the growth stories of others to leapfrog? We've taken a lot of that work and we've thought through scenarios. If Vietnam were to do that, what would that mean for patients in terms of health outcomes? What would that mean for government in terms of ability to drive economic and benefit and achieve development goals? And what would that mean for the industry in terms of an addressable market here in Vietnam?
And this, by this, Luke, you mean moving it towards a more of a value creation or an ideas generating ecosystem? Is that what you're really talking about?
Yeah, exactly. So how does Vietnam move from a import market where it's completely reliant on importing both the generics and innovative medicines to making in Vietnam both the product, but also eventually making the ideas in Vietnam, being a manufacturer of thoughts, and producing intellectual property and an ecosystem for innovation.
And I don't know whether you're going to come back to this, but are there some ingredients that you would be able to share with us of what needs to happen in somewhere like Vietnam to become that?
Yeah, so Vietnam is still in its very early days in terms of its industry development. So the major pharmaceutical companies are just now localizing their operations. So they're transitioning from rep offices to wholly owned foreign enterprises and are starting to localize some manufacturing. But the challenge is that it's very easy for them to step into basic Me Too manufacturing of generics, but there's reluctance to localize the more complex processes or their more sensitive intellectual property because of the protection of intellectual property, because of the infrastructure, the access to talent. So what we've done in our paper that I could share with you into this conversation is think backwards from some of the key elements that Vietnam, a country like Vietnam, it could be any country really, needs to consider, and how partnerships, how leveraging the industry, academia can help the government achieve those outcomes.
Excellent. Okay. Next slide. Or yeah.
Yeah. So just really quickly about Vietnam. So these, we in a pre-COVID world, Vietnam was the fastest growing country in Southeast Asia. In a post-COVID world, we think that as well, because Vietnam has actually fared fairly well during the COVID crisis. We've only had about 1,000 total cases nationally. Generally, as far as I know, only about 300 total cases at any given time. So we've been had a pretty mild impact. As you can probably tell, I'm in my office, which is a nice luxury that my colleagues in other markets don't have. So hopefully Vietnam will continue to grow. This is driven as well by increasing foreign direct investment, connectivity with the rest of the world. Vietnam is signing major trade agreements with the European Union. It's the first of its kind to sign a EU FDA trade agreement, which will give direct tax-free access to the European markets for manufacturing in Vietnam, but also be a major destination for European countries looking to export to Vietnam.
Okay.
So maybe we could dive into the health situation in Vietnam. So as Vietnam becomes less poor and its middle class grows, it's also aging. this aging population requires more pharmaceuticals. So the people are living longer and have more money, which is driving pharmaceutical sales. As you see, OTC and generics are growing the quickest, with R&D drugs as well growing, but not quite as quick. Vietnam spends more on as a share of GDP than its regional peers for healthcare. This is actually, if we had more time, we could go into some more detail. But Vietnam has written into its constitution the right to health access. So Vietnam has a universal healthcare program that covers 95% of the population. Unfortunately, out-of-pocket expenditures are still quite high. So there is a very interesting conversation in Vietnam about sustainable health financing and how Vietnam maintains to its constitutional commitment to its citizenry while still maintaining its budget. So we actually authored a paper on this subject. I'm happy to send it to the group if there's interest.
Thank you.
So again, aging population and the promise of universal healthcare, the rising income, middle class, and of course, non-communicable diseases, which is a side effect of an aging population, is growing demand for pharmaceuticals and creating an attractive market in Vietnam. If we dig into the top 10 causes of death and disability over the last 10 years, we see a very big shift. If you look at some of the growth numbers, lung cancers, heart disease, stroke, all up double digits, COPD, Alzheimer's, the conditions that you would expect from an aging population and one that is accessing international care for the first time. Now, there are two things that are at play here in these numbers. One is the obvious rise of non-communicable diseases, which you can see just by reading the therapeutic areas, but also the fact that so many conditions in Vietnam are underdiagnosed. So, for example, diabetes, it grew considerably, but Vietnam has one of the highest underdiagnosis rates of diabetes anywhere in the world. So this is a very interesting dynamic that we're seeing playing out.
Interesting.
So a bit about the market itself and where it's going. We just completed, as I said, a very detailed study that was in several phases working with the Vietnamese government, looking at peer markets around the world to identify how other markets have leveraged prescriptive policy decisions early in their development to create life science hubs, and what Vietnam can do to ultimately become a life science hub for Southeast Asia. We identified three key areas. One, R&D. So R&D first means process R&D and basic clinical research, but also moving into clinical trials and leveraging the Vietnam Social Security network that links all of its hospitals into one network. Then manufacturing. First starting with the predictable generic manufacturing, but then moving into branded manufacturing, more complex molecules as Vietnam develops its capabilities. And then underpinning all of that is a commitment to digital infrastructure. Vietnam is making enormous investments in digital infrastructure that will accelerate clinical trials by creating patient registries and other resources. Somebody was about to say something?
I was going to say that if we take this, well, where we want to go is the innovation product creation.
Correct.
If you look at the number of publications by Vietnamese universities, or you measure, I don't know, if you start cutting there, can you learn what Vietnam needs to do to boost that area? Because what I'm hearing again is the same thing. We're leveraging process and labor rather than ideas.
Yes, that's exactly the conversation that we had with the government. Is right now the government is falling into, I don't want to use the word trap, but it's the same process that every other country has has gone into of building up the process innovation to be the outsourcer of manufacturing, and then targeting towards manufacturing your own generics. But what we outlined for the government is that that's actually a very dangerous proposition for a life science market, because you get into a pricing war with much larger competitors. Keeping in mind that Vietnam is right next, is geographically speaking, fairly proximal to India. And next to China as well, which have much more pricing scalability than Vietnam does. So there's no way they'll win that battle. So you're absolutely right. In our paper, we look at how other markets, like for example South Korea, created hub models which linked academic infrastructure with government labs, and open up the market to the private industry to create public-private partnerships. Singapore as well. We did a deep case study in Singapore where the government created an incentive program by shortening the path to market and making it as easy as possible for companies to operate there. That's why if you're running a clinical trial in Southeast Asia, even though Singapore has a very small patient pool and is very expensive to do business, many companies like the global CROs like Quintiles love to do their clinical trials there because it's just so darn easy.
Yeah.
In our paper, we looked at all of those and made a few prescriptive suggestions for Vietnam.
Yeah.
Just like to say we got 2 minutes of this. Thanks.
I think you're on to something very, very good here, Luke. And I think because again, just very quickly, this idea of the geography of genius is even Boston. I mean, I'm not going to say that Boston is the same as the great Greek cultures or the Roman cultures, but
sure.
Geography of genius is that somehow it moves around. It doesn't stay in one place. And I suppose my question, just in 50 years, Luke, could you see that the idea generation of Asia will change the whole paradigm? So that
Absolutely. So one of the things we noticed in our research is that countries that are just coming onto the scene now have the advantage of, one, learning from the development models of others, but two, using digital to grow their ideas at digital speed rather than at the normal business cycles. So a country like Vietnam can use digital to really leapfrog into the future without building up the necessary infrastructure that the other markets had to do.
Yeah. So your final slide, my friend, because Graham's just given us a time check, is you've got 4 points. Just maybe quickly what they are.
Yeah. So I've just I thought that our report that we just published is another free report you might want to take a look at. Where we look at the current state of the pharmaceutical industry in Vietnam, which we already have done, lots of case studies on the development models of other markets, clear opportunities for Vietnam to develop that both from a government side, but also from the industry side. So if you're interested in understanding how the government views foreign players participating in its life science sector development, I really encourage you to read that. And then a few policy implications, working backwards from examples from other countries that are applicable to Vietnam, but basically any developing market. If you're interested in reading the report, go ahead and scan the QR code with your phone, and it'll download the report for you, or we can send it to you in the chat.
Fantastic, Luke.
We're all also sending it around. We've got a couple of questions from the audience. So Anna Staunch first, if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask a question.
Anna, please say something.
Yes, sorry, excuse me. I was a bit late. Yeah, so Luke, thank you for the presentation. It was like fabulous. I'm wondering, are you aware of any life science industry associations in Vietnam? Like, like something similar maybe to TESOLs in Thailand, or someone basically, taking care of new players and
Yeah. There are a lot of pharmaceutical associations in Vietnam. On the government side, there's a major pharmaceutical association. On the private side, for foreign pharmaceutical companies, there's what's called the Pharma Group. They're a wonderful resource, and in fact, the paper that you see on your screen was drafted in collaboration with them. They're an association of the top 20 innovative pharmaceutical companies operating in the market. So they're a wonderful resource if you want to reach out or view their website.
Okay, so it's called Pharma Group, just like that.
Yeah, I can find the website and put it in the chat box.
Oh,
Right.
perfect.
Another question, Theobald Fried, if you could just take yourself off mute and ask your question, please.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I like the idea that there are new countries on the international stage are the one that adopting digital technology. Does it mean that they will be the one in the future to lead this revolution, or does it mean as well that the old one are that conservative and don't want to adopt such technology?
So, I mean, it's a really interesting question. So, your question is, does this mean that they're going to be the winners, or I guess it depends if you view the industry as zero sum, or if you think that the industry will grow to the scale of new entrants. I'm more of the latter. That we talked just before this conference started, about how countries like Indonesia with 350 million people are just really coming online for the innovative life science sector. Vietnam with 100 million people, but within Vietnam, only 30% of which actually live in a city. Everybody else is basically outside of the functional economy, I mean, in terms of global connectivity. So I think that as these countries come online, they use these new models, they use digital, it's going to grow, it's going to scale the size of their prize to benefit everybody. Now, what these new models and digital are going to do is give new countries the opportunity to participate in a way that they couldn't have in the past. Digital access to these new resources will lower the bar of entry for new players, which will make it more accessible.
Fantastic.
Right. I think if you wrap it up now, Tony, and we'll go into the breakout sessions.
Let me just take the opportunity of thanking Luke in a big way for giving us a great presentation. What we're going to do now is break into, our concept of Coffee Buddies is to give the chance for serendipity to work. In other words, the person who you really want to talk to happens to stand in front of you in a coffee queue. As we can't be standing in a coffee queue, this is our best attempt. So Graham will be moving people around into smaller groups so that we can start an informal connection. And then we will come back to the greater group and thank Luke again together. Graham?
Okay, yeah. So we're basically going to be creating rooms now. So